Hello. So my presentation is on chlamydia and koalas. So if you're not aware, there's been a current chlamydia outbreak in Australia with the koala populations. Some experts have said that the population could be functionally extinct in some areas. That's still up for debate, but the situation is quite dire at the moment. So why am I talking about this? So I was previously working at the Australia Zoo about, so when would that be? That'd be in June. And I studied abroad in Brisbane at the University of Queensland for 6 months. And one of the things that I got to work with there was koalas, along with sea turtles, avian species, and other macropods. But when you go to the actual wildlife hospital they have there, pretty much everything is designated for koalas. So maybe you've heard of it through some media. If you watch John Oliver's show Last Week Tonight, they mentioned how there was a chlamydia award named after him, and there's a joke about it. And although it's comical, most people don't understand that it is quite a serious issue. So here's an example of a koala with conjunctivitis. So a case like this would be terminal. This koala was most likely euthanized.
Would you go back and point to that?
Oh yeah,
in case
gladly.
somebody doesn't know.
So yeah, so right there. So conjunctivitis, I'll actually go ahead because I mentioned it there. So conjunctivitis has to do with swelling around the eyes. These are the general symptoms that you'll see of koalas with chlamydia. There's conjunctivitis, something called wet bottom, which is actually quite common. When I was in Australia, at a few parks we saw. First, it's kind of hard to see koalas in the tree, but when you do, it's sometimes 50-50 when you see that. And that's a pretty surefire indicator that there's chlamydia. When you see that, if you were living in the area, you should call wildlife management resources. They pick them up. Cryptococcal pneumonia, UTI and RTI. For those who don't know what RTI is, that's reproductive tract infection, UTI is urinary tract infection, and infertility. So what has caused the outbreak? To put it quite simply, stress. So chlamydia has always been in koala populations. Not much has changed other than human interaction. So most experts have said that a lot of this is based on just new human interaction and stressors to the environment. More stressed animal is going to lead to a less successful koala. So one of the issues is also dog attacks. So at the wildlife hospital, one of the things that we most commonly come across were koalas that were, to put it nicely, messed up. So that we had to kind of treat them, and a lot of times it was a euthanizing case. To be completely honest, a lot of times working there, most of them that came in were euthanized. Like I said, the situation is quite dire. Deforestation, look at that sad koala. He looks so sad. So with eucalyptus forests being cut down, also large sweeping populations have been taken out. Koalas are also not the most mobile creatures. They spend 95% of the day sleeping. And only about 2 hours of actual activity. And with that, it also means it takes a significant amount of energy, and they're eating eucalyptus as their main food source, which is not very energy dense. So a koala having to move, let's say somewhere around like 5 to 10 miles or something like that, could be deadly and could cause them to die. And also vehicle strikes. One of the biggest issues is also cars hitting koalas. So with all these stressors combined, with the noise, with deforestation, you're causing a population that's going to be less successful in the environment and less likely to be able to combat these diseases. So general care. What have we been doing to actually take care of koalas? So to put it simple, there's only so much you can do. A lot of koala rehabilitation centers have been set up. Like I said, the one I was working on with the Australia Zoo's one. There was also one in Brisbane that was specifically designated for that. There's been multiple charities set up for the whole purpose of taking care of them. One of the things that they'll do is they'll give the koala a test period, like something like this. They'll give that koala about like a month of a chance and see if it works out. If it doesn't improve and their condition's not great, they'd probably have to euthanize. If not, they'll continue the care. They'll put them on medication. Here's one. This is a photo I took of a young koala that we were taking care of. This is a best case scenario. This one's doing much better, and we'll actually go to what they call koala kindi. And they'll take care of him for about, I believe it's 2 months or so, and then they'll release it into the wild. And this is a photo of the Australia Zoo's forest that they actually grew and set up. So what they do is that they get the koalas, they put a tracker on them, and then they release them out into their like modified forest, which is a controlled environment, to essentially see how they will perform in the wild. And then after, I think it's 2 weeks, they'll go out, get the koala, see how their condition is. If they're improving, great. They'll keep them in there for another 2 weeks, check them out. If all is good, they'll release them into the wild. If not, and they notice that its condition is rapidly deteriorating, they'll take it back, try and put it back in isolation where this photo was taken, and see what they can do, but not always successful. So daily chores. So this is just, I'm not going to read the whole thing, just going to give a quick rundown. But basically, you just have to sterilize everything. Because there's such a dense number of koalas coming in, it has to be constantly cleaned. It can't be left dirty at all. If you do that, you can cause another koala's condition to worsen. The water pots have to be refilled on a daily basis. One of the things that koalas eat is actually clay, red mud for digestion. So that's another thing that has to be replaced. Floors have to be bleached daily, and the koala's condition has to be observed. So general safety. So koalas, when you're working with them, the koalas must be, I'm trying to describe it properly, but essentially they have like these fake trees set up where they have tree branches and then you put in eucalyptus to the sides of them. But when you're working with them, they must be in the trees, because if they're not in the trees and they're on the floor, there's a decent chance they're trying to bite you. Aggressive koalas can only be taken care of by the keepers. There cannot be touching of the koalas at any time. Although this particular strain of chlamydia is not transferable to humans, it's not zoonotic, you could carry it from one and then you're working another one and you just caused an infection from one that had an improving condition and was cleared to one that was code red and you just passed along the disease. So there has to be sterility at all times. Different conditions, ones that are having more aggressive treatment, you have to be wearing different scrubs for at the time. So sterility is a massive point. Oh yeah, and don't turn your back when cleaning a koala. They can jump on your back and try and bite you. And koalas, like I said, they break down clay with their teeth. You'll get bit by an animal that bites rocks. So the current treatment, one of the main things, as with many other treatments, is aggressive IV fluids. One of the most common treatments now, after multiple clinical studies, was subcutaneous doxycycline treatments. Originally, this wasn't done because this wiped out the koala's microbiome, made it so they weren't properly able to digest food. But with probiotic supplementation, it's made it so that this treatment's been about 95% effective. Although that number sounds quite grabbing, it's only in new cases. This is something that would have to be caught early. A later case will not treat this the same way. And there will be serine protease inhibitors, and occasionally surgery, but typically because of how costly it is and just how many koalas are coming in, this is a last case scenario and only really happens when it's a hopeful case. So what next? What's going to happen with the koala population as it currently stands? To put it quite simply, no one really knows. No one really knows, just because, like I said, there are experts that said that certain populations are functionally extinct. They tried doing closed environments where there's been specific islands where they've put koalas, but then they've had issues with overpopulation due to that. One of the issues that they had was when they put the koalas out into the wild, they still have a tracker on them so they can find where their current movements are and how they are in the population. And one of the problems the Australia Zoo had was they've had some koalas come in that they've treated, cured, and then came back in because they got hit by a car, survived, and it turns out they end up having chlamydia again. So it's really not a hopeful situation at the moment, and something like reducing stress is not that simple. So, and those are my sources.
Okay,
Thank you.
questions, comments? Yeah, give them a round of applause. Comments, questions? Makes a couple take-home messages for sure. Stress reduces your ability to fight normal
Pretty much
pathogens.
everything. It's the same idea where it goes back to the studies where when you looked at wealthy families, why they have a longer life expectancy as to those in destitute. If you're in dire straits, you're going to be less able to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with koalas.
Yeah, the stress hormones impede your immune response. It's kind of like during finals week, everybody gets sick, there's stress, there's bugs always in our environment, but then the bugs didn't increase in their frequency, it's just your immunity dropped, and so therefore, like the koalas, because you said chlamydia has always been around. So it's not like an introduction, it's just some stress factor. So that's a good take-home message. Other things? Okay, let me shut this off for a second. Samantha, come on up.